Gandalf stood alone in the desolate expanse, the winds of the wilds howling across the land as they swept through the tall grasses. His gray cloak billowed like a shadow in the twilight, blending with the darkening sky. His heart was heavy with the weight of his thoughts, for he had journeyed far and long across the wilderness of Middle-earth, seeking knowledge that perhaps should have remained forgotten. Yet there was no turning back now. His path was set. The question was not whether he should seek out these ancient mysteries, but whether he could resist the call of his own past. The land before him was untamed, raw, and primal, but it was not the wilderness alone that weighed upon him. It was the silence that echoed within his soul. He had wandered this path in solitude before, and yet this time it felt different. There was a sense of purpose now, a tug at his spirit, like a distant call he could not ignore. Somewhere in this forsaken corner of the world, hidden beneath the bones of forgotten ruins, lay a key that could unlock not just the past, but his own unspoken history. The ruins before him, half drowned in the earth, were ancient even by the standards of the elves. Time had swallowed their name, their legacy lost to the passage of centuries. But as Gandalf stepped cautiously into the crumbling remnants of stone, his eyes lingered on something unexpected, something half buried beneath the dirt and decay. It was a faint outline, as if a forgotten hand had left a mark upon the earth that was not yet to be erased. With a quiet murmur to himself, Gandalf knelt beside the relic, his hands brushing away the earth to reveal a weathered bundle of parchment. It was a manuscript, its yellowed pages brittle with age, yet the very presence of it seemed to hum with an energy beyond its apparent frailty. Gandalf's breath caught in his chest. The manuscript had an aura, one that called to him, beckoning him into the shadowed depths of history. And within its pages, the mysteries of his own life seemed to wait. Carefully, Gandalf unfurled the parchment, his fingers trembling as they traced the faded script. The writing was ancient, but familiar. His heart quickened as he recognized the symbols, the language of the Maiar, the beings from which he himself had once descended. The words spoke of a long-lost artifact, the heart of the Valor, an item of immense power, said to be capable of shaping the very future of Middle-earth. But it was more than that. The manuscript mentioned a connection to a figure lost to time, a figure whose identity was obscured, but whose shadow loomed large in the history of the world. A cold shiver ran down Gandalf's spine. His own past had always been a blur, a web of secrets and half-remembered truths. Now, as he held the manuscript, the veil between the present and the past seemed to lift. This artifact, this heart of the Valor, was tied to him in ways he could not yet understand. And worse still, the manuscript hinted at a dark power, a power that had been locked away during the First Age, waiting to be unleashed once more. Gandalf stood slowly, his mind racing. The temptation to delve deeper into this mystery was strong, yet it was also fraught with danger. The lure of forbidden knowledge had always been present in his long life, but this felt different. He had spent much of his existence guiding others, shaping the events of Middle-earth from the shadows. But now he was faced with a choice: to uncover the truth of the heart of the valor, or to leave it buried and risk the destruction of all that he had worked to protect. His thoughts were interrupted by the distant rustling of leaves carried on the evening breeze. For a moment, Gandalf paused, his eyes scanning the horizon, but there was no sign of any movement, no threat on the wind. The land, silent and still, offered no answers, only more questions. He tucked the manuscript carefully into his satchel, his resolve firming. There would be no turning back now. The relic was his to find, and the mystery that surrounded it would unravel in time. But what of the cost? He had long known that power was a double-edged sword. The greatest forces in Middle-earth were not simply those that could bend the world to their will, but those that could corrupt the soul. Gandalf's heart grew heavy with the weight of his own reflections. What would he discover as he followed this path? And what would it reveal about the shadows that had clung to him for so long? His eyes, so often filled with wisdom, now betrayed a flicker of doubt. There was a deep and ancient power at play here, one that reached back far beyond the world of men and elves, and it was pulling him closer, whether he willed it or not. He turned back to the ruins, his eyes lingering on the silent stones, and with a final glance at the fading twilight, he set off toward the east, where the ruins of Numenor awaited. The winds carried whispers of ancient kings, of forgotten relics, and of a shadow that stretched across the ages. Gandalf could feel it in the air, the weight of history pressing down upon him. The heart of the valor was not just a relic, but a link to the very fabric of Middle-earth's fate. As Gandalf traveled deeper into the wilderness, the sense of inevitability grew. He was no longer simply the gray pilgrim, wandering the world in search of wisdom. He was a part of the very fabric of its history, and the path before him would either lead to salvation or destruction. The past, so long hidden, had begun to stir, and with it, the power to change the future. And so, with the manuscript securely in his possession and the journey before him, Gandalf's heart felt both heavy and resolute. The spark of curiosity had ignited a flame, and that flame would lead him to the heart of a mystery that would shape the future of Middle-earth. The choice was his, to walk in the shadow of the past or to rise above it, forging a new destiny. But one thing was certain: the journey had only just begun. The ruins of Numenor stood before Gandalf, a monument to a kingdom lost to time and greed. The remnants of great halls and fallen towers whispered of a proud civilization, now reduced to crumbling stone and forgotten names. remains of the city, carrying with them the faintest scent of salt from the distant sea. Gandalf had journeyed far, seeking to uncover the truth of the heart of the Valor, a relic of immense power hidden deep within these ruins. But as he drew closer to the chamber where it lay, he could feel something stirring within him, a presence, ancient and unsettling. The path ahead was narrow, winding through the skeletal remains of the once great city. The weight of the past pressed heavily upon him. Each step he took seemed to echo the footsteps of those who had come before, their hopes, their dreams, and their inevitable fall. At the heart of the ruins lay the chamber, its entrance guarded by stone figures long forgotten by all but the wind and the rain. Gandalf paused before the threshold, his heart thundering in his chest. A cold, palpable presence filled the air, and he could sense the darkness that lingered within this place. The heart of the Valor was near, resting in the chamber of the ancient king, its power radiating with an almost tangible force. It called to him. For a moment, Gandalf hesitated, feeling the weight of his purpose. The power of the artifact was undeniable. It had shaped the fates of men and elves alike, and now it lay within his reach. But with that power came the temptation to wield it, to use it to reshape Middle-earth in his own image, to bend the world to his will. He had long resisted the allure of power, but now it was close, so close that he could almost taste it. His thoughts were interrupted by a whisper, a soft voice that seemed to drift on the air. It was faint at first, a mere murmur, but it grew louder as he approached the heart of the ruins. Take it, Gandalf. The power is yours. Use it to rid the world of darkness. The voice seemed to echo in the stillness, and Gandalf's breath caught in his throat. The ancient spirits of Númenor, those who had once ruled this land with pride and ambition, still lingered here. Their voices, filled with regret and longing, reached out from the past, urging him to claim the power that had once been theirs. Gandalf stepped forward, his mind racing. He had always known that the pursuit of power came with a price. The greatest among the Maiar had fallen to temptation, their spirits twisted by their desire to control. The Valor themselves had bound the artifact with a curse, ensuring that only the purest of hearts could wield its power. But even the Valor had not foreseen the depths of temptation that lay in the heart of Númenor. As he reached the entrance of the chamber, Gandalf's hand hovered over the ancient stone door. The voice in his mind grew louder, more insistent. Seize it, and the world will bend to your will. The darkness will be vanquished, and you will rule as a king. A shiver ran down Gandalf's spine. He could feel the weight of the choice pressing upon him, the crushing burden of the past. The power of the artifact was not something to be taken lightly. It was the key to unimaginable strength, but it was also a weapon that could destroy all that he had fought to protect. He stepped into the chamber, his eyes scanning the room. At the center stood the artifact, glowing softly with an ethereal light, its form both beautiful and terrifying. The heart of the Valor was encased in a pedestal of stone, its surface etched with ancient runes that glowed with the faintest light. The artifact seemed to pulse, as if it were alive, calling to him, urging him to take it. Gandalf's breath caught in his throat as the whispering voice grew louder, more desperate. Why do you hesitate, Gandalf? You know what must be done. The darkness is spreading. Only you can stop it. The words echoed in his mind, and for a moment, Gandalf's resolve faltered. He had long fought to protect Middle-earth, to preserve the balance between light and dark. But now, standing before the heart of the Valor, he was forced to confront a darker truth, one that had haunted him for centuries. Could he resist the pull of power? Could he stand firm against the temptation to wield the artifact and reshape the world in his own image? Or was he, too, bound by the same darkness that had claimed Numenor? Gandalf's heart raced, and for a moment he saw himself not as the gray pilgrim, but as something more, something powerful, something capable of ruling Middle-earth. The weight of the decision settled upon him like a great stone, and he felt the allure of the artifact tug at his soul. But then a memory surfaced, one of his many journeys, one where he had seen the cost of power, the cost of succumbing to the darkness. He remembered the fallen kingdoms, the civilizations that had crumbled beneath the weight of their own ambition. He remembered the Valor's warnings, the lessons they had imparted to him. With a heavy heart, Gandalf stepped back from the pedestal. The whispering voice fell silent, replaced by a deep, resonant thrum in the air, as if the chamber itself mourned his decision. Power is not the answer, Gandalf whispered to himself. It never has been. His hand fell to the pendant at his neck, a simple piece of old silver, worn with age. It was a reminder that wisdom, not power, was the true path to healing Middle-earth. The heart of the Valor could not be his to wield. He could not allow himself to fall to the same temptation that had consumed Numenor. Gandalf turned away from the artifact, his mind resolute. The whispers of the past faded into silence, leaving only the sound of his footsteps echoing through the hollowed chamber. The temptation had been great, but in the end, it was not the power that would save Middle-earth. It was the wisdom to resist it. With the heart of the Valor still resting in its ancient pedestal, Gandalf stepped back into the ruins, his heart heavy, but his resolve strengthened. The darkness that threatened Middle-earth could not be vanquished by power alone. It could only be overcome by those who understood its nature. And Gandalf knew that the true battle had only just begun. The wind had shifted as Gandalf made his way back to Rivendell, carrying with him the heavy burden of knowledge that threatened to consume him. His footsteps were steady, but his mind was elsewhere, racing through the labyrinth of his thoughts. The journey had taken its toll, temptations it had stirred within him, he could still feel the faint echo of Tyrion's voice, urging him to seize it, to wield it as a weapon, to control the tides of fate. But now, as the familiar sight of Rivendell's peaceful, silver-lit valley rose before him, Gandalf felt the weight of his choice press upon him once more. He had resisted. The artifact remained locked away, its power denied, for he knew the price of its knowledge. And yet, despite his success, the victory felt hollow. He had seen the ruin of Númenor, the fall of its kings, and the shadows that had once lingered within its walls. The desire for power, the hunger for dominion, he had glimpsed it all, had come face to face with the very force that had shaped the course of history. It had called to him. It would have consumed him if he had let it. As Gandalf walked through the gates of Rivendell, the cool air filled his lungs. The familiar rustle of leaves and the distant murmurs of Elrond's people eased the storm within him. But the questions remained. What now? What of the burden of this knowledge, this secret that could shatter the balance of the world? He had come so close to taking that step, but the cost was too great. He paused before entering the council hall, his fingers brushing lightly against the stone walls. His thoughts turned inward, the weight of the past years settling into his bones. There was no denying the temptation, no escaping the truth that the power he had discovered could change everything. The heart of the Valor, such an artifact could shape the future of Middle-earth, but only through a cost he had now seen with his own eyes. Gandalf. Elrond's voice interrupted his thoughts, gentle yet firm. You have returned. Gandalf nodded, turning toward the Elf Lord, whose gaze was both wise and knowing. Elrond had always sensed the depths of Gandalf's burdens, and today the shadows in Gandalf's heart were clearer than ever. Elrond, Gandalf said, his voice deep and thoughtful. I have returned, but not with the answers I sought. Elrond gestured for Gandalf to sit, and the two walked into the council hall, where a fire crackled in the hearth, its light flickering across the ancient tapestries that lined the walls. Gandalf sat, the heavy weight of the manuscript, the heart of the Valor's legacy, still burdening his thoughts. You sought the relic, Elrond said, his voice soft but laden with understanding. But what did you find? Gandalf took a deep breath. I found more than I bargained for, he replied quietly. The artifact's power calls to those who seek it, and I came close, so close to yielding. But I could feel the darkness within it, Elrond. The cost of such power is beyond what I can bear. The secrets of Númenor, the fall of kings, the shadow that crept into the hearts of men and elves alike, it all leads back to the same truth. And what is that truth? Elrond asked, his voice heavy with a wisdom born of centuries of watching the rise and fall of kingdoms. That power is not the answer, Gandalf said, his voice filled with weariness. It never has been. It blinds those who seek it, warps them into something they are not. We cannot change the past, Elrond, and yet the knowledge we uncover sometimes makes us wish we could. Elrond nodded, his gaze never leaving Gandalf's face. The price of knowledge, then, he said softly. It is not merely the weight of the secrets we carry, but the knowledge that we cannot undo what has been done. The past cannot be rewritten. Gandalf's eyes darkened, the burden of centuries weighing heavily upon him. I thought I could protect Middle-earth with knowledge by uncovering its forgotten truths, but what I found was that some secrets are better left hidden. The temptation to wield that power, it threatened to overwhelm me. I came too close, Elrond. Elrond, Gandalf continued, his voice breaking the silence. I have spent so many years seeking knowledge, but I now know that it is not knowledge that will save us. It is wisdom, and wisdom tells us that some things are better left untouched. Elrond stood, walking over to the window, his eyes gazing out over the valley. The world is shaped by the choices we make, Gandalf, he said quietly, and sometimes the greatest wisdom lies in knowing when to let go. The path you walk is not one of power, but of service to those who cannot see the shadow growing around them. You are more than a seeker of knowledge. You are a guardian. Gandalf remained silent, his thoughts turning to the journeys ahead. The weight of history was heavy, but Elrond's words offered a glimmer of clarity. He was not alone in this fight. The choice to protect Middle-earth would not rest on the knowledge he could wield, but on the wisdom to protect those who could not see the dangers of the past encroaching upon their future. As he rose, Gandalf felt a sense of peace wash over him. It was the peace that came not from understanding all things, but from accepting that some mysteries were beyond his grasp. He could not rewrite history, but he could shape the future. The future, Gandalf, Elrond's voice echoed in the room, is in your hands, as it is in the hands of all who choose the path of wisdom over power. Gandalf nodded, feeling the weight of his decision. The past was gone, its secrets buried beneath the earth, but the future was still open, still malleable. And with wisdom, he would ensure that Middle-earth's light would not be extinguished. As the evening sky darkened and the fire flickered low, Gandalf turned away from the past. The journey was far from over, but for the first time in a long while, he felt ready to face what lay ahead. The shadow of knowledge no longer clouded his heart, and with it, a quiet determination settled within him. The light of wisdom, he now knew, was the true guide for those who sought to protect the world. And so Gandalf sat by the fire, his heart at peace for the first time in many years. The journey had shaped him, and with it, the understanding that the true measure of power was not in what one could control, but in what one chose to protect.